What happened to the price of Bitcoin today? Well, it looks like people have started to panic for some reason over this news that supposedly just broke that the SEC has asked Coinbase to stop trading all cryptocurrencies except for Bitcoin. And this sent Bitcoin plummeting all the way down 1.22% this morning. And obviously, I'm being a little bit sarcastic here because if you just zoom out, you can see that we're still at basically $29,000 and almost $5,000. And we're still stuck right here within this range. Really, nothing has happened. But if you look at apps like Robinhood, then it'll look like there was some really big price movement. Anyway, I think that this is basically a nothing burger because it happened a long time ago. This news did just break, but apparently this happened prior to the SEC actually suing Coinbase, and that happened back in June. This article by Watcher Guru says that in an interview with the Financial Times, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, said, "They came to us and they said, we believe every asset other than Bitcoin is a security. This basically means that Gary Gensler is a maxi-pad." And it goes on to say, "We said, well, how are you coming to that conclusion? Because that's not what our interpretation of the law is." And they said, "We're not going to explain it to you. You need to delist every asset other than Bitcoin." Well, apparently this made it pretty easy because Armstrong says we really didn't have any choice at that point. Delisting every asset other than Bitcoin, which by the way is not what the law says, would have essentially just ended the whole cryptocurrency industry in the US. It kind of made it an easy choice, like let's take it to court and find out what the court says. I'm really glad that Brian Armstrong is standing up for the crypto space, but obviously this would have just decimated his whole business, and it basically would have made Coinbase just a Bitcoin exchange, which almost certainly wouldn't have been enough to make a real business. So I don't know if this is actually what sent the price of Bitcoin down this morning, but obviously it happened a long time ago, and it's going to take a couple years at least for this lawsuit to go through with the SEC and Coinbase. So in the meantime, I don't think this is going to have very much of an effect on the actual price of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general. What might have an effect on the price of Bitcoin, though, is the race to the Bitcoin ETF. And you might be thinking that we're just waiting on BlackRock to have their Bitcoin spot ETF approved, and that they're the first ones that have a deadline coming up here. But that's not actually true because ARK Shares has actually had their ETF filing in for quite a while, and they just had to refile it after BlackRock put in their iShares Bitcoin Trust application. And they have their second deadline coming up next month on the 13th, which means that we could actually have a Bitcoin spot ETF approved as soon as that. But right after that, in September, it looks like on the 2nd, the BlackRock's first deadline comes up. And we have a few of them going on that same week. Actually, the day before is the Bitwise Bitcoin ETP Trust by Bitwise. And on the very same day as BlackRock's ETF, we also have the Van Eck, the Wisdom Tree, the Invesco Galaxy Bitcoin ETF, and the Wise Origin Bitcoin Trust ETF. And that one's from Fidelity. So I think there's a pretty good chance of at least one of these being approved on that date. And if it's not, then I'm sure that we'll probably see at least one of these. And probably the first one will be the BlackRock ETF. But one of them is probably going to be approved by, I guess, March. Because as you can see, the final deadline is actually on March 15th for most of these. Whenever one of these spot ETFs gets approved, I think this is going to send the market absolutely parabolic. And in the meantime, this is just the best opportunity to accumulate because it's only a matter of time until one of these goes through. Here we have a tweet from the SEC, and it looks like they've finally actually gotten their heads out of their asses, and they're doing something worthwhile. It says, "Today we charge Richard Hart, aka Richard Schuler, and 3 unincorporated entities that he controls, Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX, with conducting unregistered offerings of crypto asset securities that raised more than $1 billion in crypto assets from investors." In my opinion, this is great news because Richard Hart is one of the biggest and most obvious scammers in this space, allegedly, and in my opinion, for sure. And I just believe that this guy is a cancer on the community, and it's great to see the SEC actually suing one of these guys, and hopefully they'll make an example of him so that we'll see scammers in this space actually have a second thought and maybe not continue to scam people out of fear that they might be attacked by the SEC as well. Richard Hart, the creator of Crypto Hex token, illegally used millions of investors' funds to buy a 555 carat black diamond known as the Enigma, according to the US SEC. I guess this is a picture of the Enigma here. And it goes on to say that Richard Hart and Pulse Chain used at least $12.1 million of investor funds to buy luxury purchases, including the diamond, expensive watches, and high-end automobiles, the agency said. This is absolutely disgusting and despicable, obviously, but it doesn't surprise me at all because I've seen Richard Hart in interviews before, and if you listen to just 5 minutes of him talking, it's pretty repulsive, and you can see that he's just kind of a douchebag, allegedly. Honestly, though, I'm kind of surprised that anybody would put money into that, and it's just like so many other things in the crypto space that just seem like obvious scams and just really shady, but people for some reason just keep putting money into these things. It's kind of hard for me, honestly, to feel bad for any of these people that continue to be scammed by these dirtbags because they honestly just make it so obvious. But I don't want people to get scammed, obviously, and I just want everybody in the crypto space to be able to reach financial independence. So in my opinion, it's definitely a good thing that the SEC is finally doing something that matters, and they're trying to go after these actual just straight up scammers in the space so that maybe all of these so-called influencers will stop just making scam tokens and rug pulling on their communities. That's really all I've got for you guys. So let me know in the comments if you guys think a Bitcoin spot ETF is actually going to be accepted or approved by the end of the year, or if we're going to have to wait all the way till March. Either way, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. This is Ibisu. He's named after one of the 7 lucky gods of Japan. According to legend, he will bring wealth and prosperity to anybody who evokes his name. So don't forget to write his name in the comments or you'll bring dishonor to your whole portfolio. And check out this video right here. Say goodbye, Ibisu.